right, class. I wanted to note to you the change that I decided to make uh, with regard to the peer review. Excuse me. So notice now that in the discussion board, you'll see that I have added the peer review discussion. So here you see it says peer review 1 annotated bib. And the note here tells you exactly what to do, but I wanted to do a little video just to make sure it was clear to everybody how this is going to work. So what it says is authors will post their annotated bib rough draft here by midnight Thursday night. So that's Thursday night. It needs to be done by Thursday midnight. Okay, as an attachment. Go ahead and do this one as an attachment so that they can see exactly what your formatting and everything looks like. If you just copy and paste it into the discussion, it might not look quite right. It might not have the right formatting. So you want your peer reviewer to be able to see your everything, even including like your margins being proper and all that stuff, heading, page numbering, everything. Okay. Now remember, if you have not already done so, there's a video, and that video is not only here in these videos here where it says formatting and tips. It's in there, but it's also here where it says video guides. So if you click on video guides, you'll see that same one in there. You can just click on it right there. If you need to watch that video to make sure that you're doing your formatting all correctly, doing your page numbering correctly and everything, if you have not already done that, this would obviously be the time to definitely do that to make sure that everything is nice and perfect, or at least as good as you can get it, for your peers to take a look at it. Now, what will happen is one peer will come in here and they will select one person's project. In other words, you don't want to peer review two papers. You as a peer reviewer only want to do one. That way everybody hopefully will get a chance. There are 14 of you in the class, so that should be an even 1-for-1. Okay, so that should make it work out just fine. So you will post, and by the way, for number 1, you should have as much as you can get of your annotated bib done, but at least obviously one full entry. An entry being the like if you look at the sample, the entry would be the I'm sorry, look at this let's take a look at this sample again. And I want to make sure it's clear to everybody what is entailed here. Remember, you should have your entry, which should be all of this information here. That's the actual entry that what it would look like on Works Cited. And remember, it should be in alphabetical order. And this, of course, is the proper formatting, page numbering up in the header, 1-inch margin, all that. Also note that there's 2 parts to the paragraphs. The first paragraph, or half of the paragraph, depending on how you decide to do it, should be simply a summary of what the whole source is about. And it doesn't even have to be this long. It's just a summary of what the source is about. And then the longer part, actually, than what he really has here, is usually going to be the longer part, is where you talk about how it's actually going to be used in your paper. What is it going to do for your paper? There's a thing in the textbook, I forget what page it's on, but somewhere in the textbook there's a thing called BEAM, B-E-A-M, that we will be talking about later a little bit more in depth. But BEAM is basically where it tells you the different ways that sources will be useful. B, for example, is for background information, right? So, well, since I'm mentioning it, maybe I should go ahead and find that real quick here in the book. Goodness, I can't remember where that's at. Incorporating BEAM. So, BEAM. B is background. So obviously some sources might provide simply some background information. Exhibit is for E. Exhibit means sources that use for exhibit are offering explication or analysis or interpretation. In other words, these sources provide examples of something the author is trying to say. It might also be argument. That's what the A in beam is, argument. It might be where the source is allowing you, the writer, to affirm or dispute the assertions. Create and affirm your own assertion, or dispute somebody else, the opposition's assertions, or refine or extend an argument. And then finally, M is methods. The methods would be where you're trying to explain some kind of major concept or manner of working, it says in the book here. In other words, they might help to justify the author's particular approach. For example, a writer might use a source that defines and describes feminism in general in order to help an audience understand the author's feminist approach in analyzing that text. So you see, that's the ways that you can do that. So that's what this paragraph's about, is providing information about how you will use it in the paper. And note that it has to include at least one example directly pulled from the source, like a statistic like this, or a quote, or something like that. It has to be something pulled directly from the source. In other words, just simply saying that, if he had just simply said providing statistics about suicides carried out by handguns, that would not be good enough. I want to see the actual information from the source, either in a quote or in a statistics, numbered statistics or stuff like this, right? So that's how one entry would look, those three parts. You would have to have at least one of those for tomorrow night. Now, if you have two, that's awesome, because two is what you need to have by Sunday night to have this whole thing done for your first submission. I say first submission of the annotated bib because the first submission is just for me to see that you know how to do it, right? It's just for me to get an idea, and for you to use to practice on it and get an idea of how to do them. The final submission of it will be where you will turn it in with your report as your actual works cited page. So we'll talk more about that later, but your report will not have a separate will not have a works cited page per se. It'll simply be the annotated bibliography. That will be your works cited page. And so this will basically, in other words, this will be your last few pages of your paper, and it should be actually, when you're done, when it's all said and done, it should be page numbered along with the page numbering in sequence of your paper, of your report, the big report. So that will be the second submission, is when you actually turn it in as part of your report, and that way it's completed. I can see all the sources on there and know that all of them are on there because they are all actually used in the paper. That's kind of why we do two submissions, or I do two submissions. So back to this. So the person who's doing the review will read that person's, and then they will do a letter. It does not have to be a formal business letter format, but obviously that would be okay. That would be a plus. But if you don't do it in a business letter, I'm not going to harm you in the grade or anything. I'm not going to let that hurt you. But it would certainly be great if you do it. I might make it a little bit more impressive to me and to your peer. So that obviously would be a good way to do it, but it's not absolutely required. The third step is that you, the reviewer, after completing that letter of peer review, you will go back to this original posting where they first put theirs in there as an attachment, and you will put in your peer review letter as an attachment so that they can bring it up and see what you've had to say about their paper. Okay? Now, I suppose if you wanted to just copy and paste it into their peer review thing, that would be fine, as long as it's okay for others to see it, because obviously others will be able to see it. Well, actually, others will be able to see it even if they click on your attachment. So I guess that doesn't really matter. But you really should get that back to them as soon as you can, just to give them more time to use it, to help them. But no later than Friday night, by the next midnight, the next night. Okay, so you'll simply, like it says, you'll do it by commenting on the original post and attaching your peer review letter. Or, like I said, if you want to, your peer review letter could actually be the post. You could actually post it in there. So what this might look like, in other words, is you might go in here and you might, I don't want to seem like I'm babying you or anything and oversimplifying it, but hopefully this will prevent you from having to ask any questions, right? So you'll go in here and you'll simply name it, and then you'll maybe if you want to put any instructions in here for your peer, you can in here, and then you will add your paper as an attachment, right? Then somebody else will come in and they will simply they will look at yours, and if nobody else has already commented in theirs, like see, so you go in and you see mine, and you see over here, I don't know what yours looks like, but hopefully yours looks similar to this. And if you see that there's only one post, meaning nobody else has gone into it, or if you want to double check and be sure, you just go in, and if you look in it and you see that there's only one post from this Griever guy, whoever he is, and you want to go ahead and choose that one because nobody else has done so, you just simply go in here and you reply. It'll show, obviously it'll show your name, or you can say this is doggone Bubba, I got this paper, something like that. It doesn't matter, anything like that. You want to say this is so and so, and this is mine, this is the one I chose, or I've chosen this one, or however you want to do it. That's fine, it's no big deal. And then when you're done, you'll submit, and that way when people come in, they'll see that you've already got it. They'll skip that one and go on to another one, right? Then when you're done, you'll come back into the same one and you'll simply hit reply again, and then you will upload your peer review letter to them so that they can use it to help them. Remember, the peer review letter needs to be based on information on page 106 in the textbook, in the JAC or JAC. And of course, it's got some ground rules in there, some things to look for and to do. Basically, what you'll do is the best way to do it will be to simply have have the sample pulled up, either the sample on here or the sample in the book on page 6, and compare it, and make sure they have everything the way it's supposed to look. Make sure they have everything tabbed in underneath the entry. Notice that too. Notice that everything is tabbed in, right? Everything here is tabbed in except for the first word. The first line is the only thing that's left margin. Everything else for that one entry is all tabbed in. Then the next entry is left margin, and everything under it is tabbed in. Obviously, that just makes it very easy for me to tell which entries are which and from each other, right? So that's something that's just one of the many little things you could look for and give them commentary on. Okay, hopefully everybody understands this. I'm going to go back in now and delete these things, and you guys keep busy, and you're all doing great. Doing a great job so far. At some point by the end of this week, I'd like for you all to let me know, and I'll put out a reminder for this, but let me know what you think about using these videos and stuff. I'm just wondering if they're going to be helpful or not. So, with that, I'm done.